The universe was vast, filled with countless species and civilizations. Some had reached the peak of technology, while others were still struggling to survive. Earth, home to humanity, was a young planet compared to many others, but it was rapidly advancing. After centuries of war, poverty, and division, humanity had finally come together. Nations now worked as one, focusing on exploration and peaceful expansion into the stars. However, they had never imagined they would be drawn into a war that spanned the galaxy. One quiet evening, an unexpected signal broke through the silence of space. It was a cry for help, a message from a species far beyond the reach of Earth. The message came from a species known as the Orcs, an ancient race, highly intelligent and peaceful, who had once flourished across the stars. Now, they were on the edge of extinction. The Orcs had been under attack for years by the Xoric, a ruthless and powerful empire known for its cruelty. The Xoric had spread their dominance across countless worlds, crushing anyone who dared to oppose them. The Orcs were among the last to resist, but their defenses were weakening. In desperation, they sent out a call for help, broadcasting it across every frequency they could reach. The message was received on Earth. It was brief, but it was clear. The Orcs were fighting for their survival. Their cities were falling, their people were being slaughtered, and their world was on the brink of collapse. They had no way to fight back. The Xoric were too powerful. Humanity had never encountered the Xoric. The galaxy was a big place, and they had only just begun to explore it. But the message struck a chord with the people of Earth. The Orcs weren't asking for riches or territory. They were asking for a chance to survive. And humanity, now united and stronger than ever before, couldn't ignore their plea. The governments of Earth immediately convened. Leaders from every corner of the planet met in secret to discuss what to do. The debate was intense, but there was no hesitation. Humanity had fought its own battles for survival, and they knew what it meant to lose everything. They understood the importance of standing up against injustice, no matter how impossible the odds seemed. The decision was made quickly. Humanity would help the Orcs. They would not allow another species to be wiped out by the Xoric. With Earth's resources, technology, and unity, they would fight back. In the following days, preparations began. Earth's military forces, though not yet tested on a galactic scale, quickly mobilized. Scientists worked day and night to develop new technologies, using everything they had learned in their short time in space. The first wave of ships was prepared to venture into the unknown. They would find the Orcs, join their fight, and bring the full force of humanity's might to bear. The Xoric would soon learn that humanity was not just another species to conquer. When aliens cried out for help, humanity's response would be fierce, unstoppable, and full of hope. The news of humanity's decision to help the Orcs spread quickly across Earth. People cheered, proud that their planet had chosen to stand up against the Xoric Empire. But behind the celebrations, leaders knew the truth. This was not going to be easy. The Xoric were powerful and ruthless, and they had the resources of an entire galaxy at their disposal. To prepare for what was coming, a special council was formed. The leaders of Earth's major governments came together with top military commanders, brilliant scientists, and skilled diplomats. They gathered in a secure location, away from the public eye, to plan their next steps. This was no time for mistakes. At the heart of the council were General Marcus Hayes, a decorated military leader, and Dr. Elena Cruz, a brilliant scientist who had helped develop many of Earth's latest technologies. Together, they were tasked with creating a strategy that would allow humanity to defeat the Xoric and save the Orcs. General Hayes looked around the room at the gathered leaders. The council was composed of people from different countries, but now, all were united with one common purpose. There could be no divisions now. They were about to face an enemy unlike any they had ever encountered. "We need to act fast," General Hayes said, his voice steady but full of determination. "The Orcs are on the brink of extinction. Every moment we waste is another step toward their total destruction. Dr. Kruz nodded. Our technology is advancing quickly, but we're still new to galactic warfare. We'll need to adapt, learn from others, and above all, move with speed. The Xoric won't wait for us to catch up. The Council agreed that time was of the essence. Earth's military was not yet a match for the Xoric's might, but they had something the Xoric didn't: unity and determination. The Orogos, too, had knowledge and wisdom that could help. The first step would be to make contact with the Orogos and offer them humanity's support. The diplomatic envoy to the Orogos was led by Ambassador Liam Clark, a skilled negotiator who had helped secure Earth's first interstellar trade agreements. His job was to ensure that the Orogos trusted humanity, to convince them that they could win this war together. The Orogos, still reeling from the constant attacks of the Xoric, were hesitant. They had no reason to believe that another species could help them, especially one that had never fought in galactic warfare. But Ambassador Clark was persuasive. He explained that humanity had faced many challenges throughout its history and had always found a way to overcome them. It wasn't just technology or strength that made them dangerous. It was their will to survive, their refusal to give up in the face of impossible odds. Finally, the Orogos agreed to meet with the Council. Their leaders, known as the Elders, were wary but hopeful. The Orogos had powerful bioengineering abilities, but their war with the Xoric had drained them. They would need humanity's technology and strategy to survive. As the Council continued to plan, the first human ships were prepared. General Hayes had one goal in mind: to show the Xoric that humanity would not back down. They would fight with everything they had, and no matter what happened, they would never stop. The galaxy would learn that humanity was not to be underestimated. The war had begun, and humanity was ready. The first battle was one the galaxy would never forget. Humanity's ships, newly designed and equipped with the best technology Earth could offer, were ready for their first true test in space. They had been preparing for months, but no one could be sure how they would fare against the mighty Xoric. The warships were fast, built for agility, and packed with powerful energy weapons, but the Xoric were known for their brutal, overwhelming force. They had conquered countless worlds, and now they were about to face humanity. The battle took place in the distant blazing star system, a region of space known for its dangerous asteroid fields and blazing suns. It was the perfect place to fight. The Xoric fleet, massive and imposing, had arrived first, expecting to easily crush any resistance. But they did not expect the humans. General Marcus Hayes stood on the bridge of the flagship Endeavour, watching as the first wave of Xoric ships appeared on the horizon. His heart pounded in his chest. This was it. There was no turning back now. "They're coming in fast," said Commander Laura Tanaka, the Endeavour's second in command. Her voice was calm, but Hayes could see the tension in her eyes. "We're ready," Hayes replied. "All units, prepare for combat." The human fleet, made up of dozens of warships, formed a defensive line. They were outnumbered by the Xoric, but they had the element of surprise. The Xoric's tactics were based on overwhelming force. They charged into battle without hesitation, expecting to crush their enemies through sheer numbers. But the humans had learned to fight differently. They didn't have to win by force. They would win through strategy and speed. As the Xoric closed in, the human ships scattered, weaving through the asteroid field at incredible speeds. It was chaos, but it was also carefully planned chaos. The Xoric ships were large, slow, and lacked the agility to navigate the field. The human ships, small and fast, darted in and out, launching precise energy blasts at the Xoric vessels. The Xoric were caught off guard. Their massive warships were easy targets for the humans, who used hit-and-run tactics to disable the enemy ships one by one. For the first time in a long time, the Xoric began to falter. "They're not fighting like we thought," one of the Xoric commanders growled. "They're using strategy, not strength." General Hayes smiled. It was true. The humans weren't just relying on brute force. They were using their intelligence, their creativity, and their ability to think on their feet. The Xoric were used to crushing their enemies with overwhelming might, but they were unprepared for an enemy who fought smarter, not harder. As the battle raged on, the Xoric fleet began to break apart. One by one, their ships were taken down. Some were destroyed in the asteroid fields, others disabled by targeted strikes. The human fleet didn't stop. They pressed forward, never giving the Xoric a chance to regroup. It was then that the Xoric commander, realizing the tide of the battle had turned, ordered a retreat. The remaining Xoric ships fled, leaving behind the wreckage of their once mighty fleet. General Hayes stood tall as he watched the retreating ships. Humanity had just won its first victory in a war that seemed impossible. The Xoric had learned a valuable lesson. Humanity was not just another species to conquer. They were a force to be reckoned with. As the human fleet celebrated their victory, Hayes knew that this was only the beginning. The Xoric would return, but humanity would be ready. As the war continued to grow fiercer, humanity realized they couldn't fight the Xoric alone. Despite their first victory, the Xoric were still a massive and powerful empire. But they had an ally now, the Orogos, a species with incredible knowledge and abilities. The question was, could they use their hidden power in time to turn the tide? The Orogos had kept their full potential a secret. For centuries, they had relied on their advanced intellect and peaceful ways, never resorting to war or violence. But now, with their very existence at risk, the Orogos leaders were considering something they had never thought possible: unlocking their hidden powers. The question was whether they could control these abilities, or if they would consume them in the process. On the Orogos homeworld, a meeting of the elders was held in a grand council chamber. The elders were the wisest and oldest members of their species, and they were known for their ability to make decisions with deep understanding and care. They had been hesitant to reveal their true potential, fearing what it might mean for their people. Elder Valter, one of the oldest and most respected members of the Orogos, stood before the council. His skin shimmered with a soft, iridescent glow, and his large, wise eyes reflected years of knowledge. He had seen the Orogos rise to greatness, and now he was watching them fall. "We cannot allow our race to be wiped out," Valter said, his voice echoing through the chamber. "But we must ask ourselves, are we willing to awaken the power we have kept hidden? This power could change the balance of the war, but it could also destroy us." The council was silent. They had always prided themselves on their peaceful ways. The idea of fighting and using force went against everything they believed in. Yet the Xoric had shown no mercy. They had been relentless in their attacks, and the Orogos had no choice but to consider extreme measures. Meanwhile, on Earth, General Hayes and Dr. Elena Cruz were working together with the Orogos to figure out how they could combine their strengths. Dr. Cruz had learned much from the Orogos' bioengineering techniques, and she believed there might be a way to safely unlock their abilities without destroying them. "We can help," Dr. Cruz said, her voice filled with confidence. "The Orogos have powers that go beyond anything we've ever seen. With the right guidance, they can harness those powers without losing control." The Orogos were hesitant, but the urgency of the situation left them little choice. The war with the Xoric was only getting worse. Every day, more Orogos fell, and the Xoric grew stronger. With heavy hearts, the elders agreed. They would allow humanity to assist them in unlocking their abilities. As the Orogos began to tap into their hidden powers, something incredible happened. Their bodies began to glow brighter, their minds sharper, and their energy more focused. They could manipulate matter on a molecular level, create energy fields, and even heal wounds instantly. They were no longer just a peaceful species. They had become powerful warriors. The transformation was both awe-inspiring and terrifying. The Orogos' abilities were now unleashed, but they still struggled to control them. The combination of human guidance and Orogos' power created something greater than either species could achieve alone. In time, the Orogos learned to harness their powers. They were no longer the weak, desperate race they had once been. They were warriors, standing side by side with humanity in the fight against the Xoric. Humanity had given them hope. And now, the Orogos would fight back. With the Orogos now armed with their hidden powers, the battle against the Xoric began to change. Humanity and the Orogos had formed a strong alliance, and together, they were preparing to launch a full-scale counterattack. But they knew that winning the war would take more than just raw power. It would require careful planning, strategy, and unity. General Hayes stood on the bridge of the Endeavor, looking out at the stars. The war had already cost so much, and the Xoric were relentless. But for the first time in a long while, he felt a spark of hope. They were no longer fighting alone. The Orogos had brought new strength to their cause. "General," Commander Tanaka said, stepping beside him, "the Orogos have completed their training. They're ready for the next phase of the plan." Hayes nodded. The Orogos had proven themselves in the past few weeks. They had learned to control their newfound powers, using them to create powerful energy shields, heal their wounded comrades, and even disable enemy ships from a distance. They had become an unstoppable force. "The Xoric won't know what hit them," Hayes said, a smile creeping onto his face. "But we can't get too confident. We need to strike when the time is right." The plan was simple but daring. The human and Orogos fleets would launch a surprise attack on one of the Xoric's main supply stations, located deep within their territory. If they could destroy it, they would cripple the Xoric's ability to resupply and reinforce their troops. It would be a major blow to their war machine. The mission was risky. The Xoric were known for their heavy defenses, and they would not let their supply station fall without a fight. But the alliance between humanity and the Orogos had grown strong. Together, they were confident that they could succeed. As the fleet approached the Xoric station, tensions ran high. Every ship was ready, and the Orogos' energy powers were at full strength. The attack began as soon as they arrived in range. Human warships fired first, targeting the station's outer defenses, while Orogos ships used their ability to manipulate energy to create powerful shockwaves, disabling the Xoric shields. The battle raged on, as both sides fought fiercely. The Xoric retaliated, sending wave after wave of ships to defend the station. But the human-Orogos alliance was relentless. With every passing minute, the Xoric forces were pushed back. General Hayes watched the battle unfold on the command screen, his heart pounding. "Keep pushing forward. We can't let up now." Dr. Cruz, who was stationed on a separate ship, worked alongside the Orogos scientists to help fine-tune their energy manipulation techniques. "They're weakening," she reported. "The Xoric shields are failing. We have a chance." The final blow came when an Orogos ship, led by Elder Valter himself, unleashed a massive energy pulse, sending a shockwave that shattered the Xoric supply station's core. The station exploded in a brilliant burst of light, signaling the end of the Xoric's foothold in that sector. For the first time since the war began, the Xoric were forced to retreat. They had suffered a major defeat, and the human-Orogos alliance had proven that they were a force to be reckoned with. As the victorious fleets returned to their bases, General Hayes allowed himself a moment of relief. They had done it, but this victory was just the beginning. The Xoric would retaliate, and they would need to be ready for the battles ahead. The tide had turned. Humanity and the Orogos were no longer fighting for survival. They were fighting to win. The victory at the Xoric supply station sent shockwaves through the galaxy. For the first time, the Xoric had been dealt a heavy blow. They had lost a vital resource, and their forces were left scrambling to regroup. The human-Orogos alliance celebrated their success, but General Marcus Hayes and Dr. Elena Cruz both knew the war was far from over. The Xoric were not a species to accept defeat easily. In the aftermath of their loss, the Xoric leadership gathered in secret, deep within their strongholds, far from prying eyes. Their pride had been wounded, and they were eager for revenge. Xoric Emperor Karath, A towering figure whose cold eyes struck fear into even the bravest of warriors stared at the holographic display of the destroyed supply station. His voice, deep and menacing, echoed through the war room. "This will not go unpunished," Emperor Karath growled. "These humans and Orogos will pay for their insolence. They have dared to challenge the might of the Xoric. It is time to remind them why we are the dominant force in this galaxy." The Xoric had one advantage that no one could ignore: their ruthless determination and their ability to adapt. Their empire had fallen to the might of the Orogos' power and humanity's strategic brilliance, but the Xoric were not finished. They were gathering their strength for a counterattack. Meanwhile, on Earth, General Hayes convened with his closest advisors. The celebration of their victory had been brief, but now the focus had shifted to the next phase of the war. He stood at the head of the table, his face grim. "We've struck a major blow to the Xoric, but they will be back," Hayes said, his voice serious. "We need to prepare for their retaliation." Dr. Kruz nodded. "The Xoric are not weak. They will come at us with everything they have. We need to be ready." In the weeks that followed, the Alliance continued to work together, strengthening their defenses and sharing their knowledge. The Orogos' abilities were growing stronger by the day, and humanity had begun to integrate more advanced technology into their fleet. But everyone knew that the Xoric were not a force to be underestimated. One day, as the fleets of Earth and the Orogos trained in the outer reaches of the solar system, an unexpected signal came through. It was faint, but unmistakable. The Xoric were coming. "They found us," Commander Tanaka said, her voice tense. "The Xoric are heading straight for Earth." Hayes felt a chill run down his spine. They had anticipated an attack, but this felt different. The Xoric weren't just coming for revenge. They were coming with an army, a fleet of unimaginable size. Dr. Kruz turned to the holographic display. "This is bigger than anything we've faced so far. They've brought their full force." The Xoric were coming for Earth. The first battle had been won, but now the true test would begin. Would humanity and the Orogos be able to defend their home world, or would the might of the Xoric crush them once and for all? As the enemy fleet grew closer, the Alliance knew they had to act quickly. Earth's defenses were ready, but the Xoric were relentless. It was time for the fight of their lives. The Xoric fleet was massive, far larger than any force humanity or the Orogos had ever faced. As it approached Earth, it cast a shadow over the entire planet. The skies above were filled with the sound of sirens as the human defenses powered up, preparing for the fight of their lives. General Hayes stood at the command center, his eyes locked on the giant holographic display, showing the incoming enemy fleet. The tension in the room was thick. Everyone knew this was it. If they lost, Earth would fall, and the war might be lost for good. "They're here," Hayes said, his voice steady but full of resolve. "All units, prepare for battle." Commander Tanaka was at his side, her face grim. "The Xoric are here in full force. We can't hold them off for long without reinforcements." Dr. Kruz, who had been working alongside the Orogos to further enhance their abilities, turned to them. "We'll do everything we can, but we need to be smart. We can't just throw everything at them at once. We have to strike when the time is right." Across the globe, humans and Orogos stood ready. Cities were evacuated, military personnel took their positions, and the combined fleets of Earth and the Orogos took to the stars, ready to defend their world. The planet had never seen such unity. It wasn't just a fight for survival, it was a fight for their future, for their freedom. As the Xoric fleet grew nearer, the first wave of battle began. Humanity's ships, guided by human ingenuity and Orogos' energy manipulation powers, met the Xoric in the vast expanse of space. The human ships were fast and precise, darting in and out of the Xoric fleet, launching powerful energy blasts. The Orogos, with their ability to bend energy to their will, created shields to protect their allies and struck down enemy ships with their energy pulses. The Xoric, however, were not easily defeated. Their ships were large and heavily armored, but their real strength lay in their brutal tactics and sheer numbers. They sent wave after wave of fighters into the fray, hoping to overwhelm the human and Orogos forces. Despite the odds, the humans and Orogos fought with everything they had. They used the terrain of space to their advantage, hiding behind asteroids, launching surprise attacks, and taking down enemy ships one by one. But the Xoric weren't backing down. Their retaliatory strikes were fierce, and the battle soon became a test of endurance. General Hayes and Commander Tanaka watched as the battle raged on. The Xoric fleet seemed endless, with more ships arriving every minute. "They just keep coming," Tanaka said, her voice strained. "We're going to need more firepower if we're going to win this." "We've got one chance left," Hayes replied. "We have to hit their flagship. If we can take that down, it might cripple their entire fleet." Dr. Croz's voice crackled through the comms. "We can do this. The Orogos have unlocked a new level of power. If we can concentrate our energy blasts on the flagship, we might stand a chance." The decision was made. All ships focused their efforts on the Xoric flagship, the heart of their fleet. The battle intensified, with humans and Orogos pushing forward together. In a coordinated strike, the Orogos unleashed their full energy power, while the human ships launched everything they had. The Xoric flagship trembled as it absorbed hit after hit. Finally, with a massive explosion, the flagship shattered, its remaining forces scattering in chaos. The battle wasn't over, but with the loss of their command center, the Xoric began to retreat. It wasn't the victory they had hoped for, but it was a victory nonetheless. The fight for Earth had been won, but the war was far from over. After the battle above Earth, there was a brief moment of relief. The Xoric flagship had been destroyed, and their forces had retreated, leaving behind a shattered fleet. Humanity and the Orogos had won a major victory, but the cost was high. The war was far from over, and both sides knew that the Xoric would come back stronger than ever. General Hayes stood in the command center of the Endeavor, his eyes scanning the reports coming in from across the solar system. The human forces had suffered heavy losses, and many Orogos ships had been damaged or destroyed. Yet despite the destruction, there was still hope. The Xoric had been forced to retreat for now, but everyone knew it wouldn't last long. "We've held Earth for now," Commander Tanaka said, her voice tired but steady. "But the Xoric will regroup, and they'll be back. We need to prepare for what's coming next." General Hayes nodded, rubbing his forehead. "We need to strike while they're still weak. We can't let them recover. If we give them time, they'll be stronger than ever." Dr. Croz entered the room, her expression serious. "I've been working with the Orogos to develop new technology. We've learned a lot from their powers, and there might be a way to use their energy manipulation abilities to create a weapon that could finally end this war." Hayes looked at her, a glimmer of hope in his eyes. "A weapon? What kind of weapon?" "We're not sure yet," Dr. Croz replied. "But if we can harness the Orogos' energy abilities on a large scale, we might be able to create a weapon that could wipe out entire fleets in one strike. It's risky, but it could be our only chance." The plan was risky, and the Orogos were hesitant. They had only just begun to understand their powers, and the idea of using them as a weapon was unsettling. But the reality of the war was clear. If they didn't act quickly, Earth and their homeworld would be destroyed. Meanwhile, the Xoric were not idle. Emperor Kareth had retreated to his hidden stronghold, but his fury was building. The loss of the flagship had shaken his empire, and he was determined to crush the humans and Orogos once and for all. In the dark reaches of space, Kareth called together his war council. "The humans and their allies have underestimated us. We will not allow this humiliation to stand. We will strike back, harder than ever. Prepare for the final assault." The Xoric were already rebuilding their fleet, stronger and more determined than ever. They would come for Earth again, but this time, they would have a new weapon, one that could turn the tide of the war. Back on Earth, General Hayes knew time was running out. The Orogos were working tirelessly to perfect the new weapon, but they couldn't be sure it would work in time. The Xoric would not give them a chance to rest. The final battle was drawing near, and the fate of the galaxy hung in the balance. Humanity and the Orogos had proven that they could win against the Xoric, but the next battle would be the hardest yet. The Xoric would come for Earth with everything they had. And this time, humanity and the Orogos would need to be ready. The time had come. After months of brutal fighting, humanity and the Orogos were ready for the final battle. The Xoric were returning in full force, and they weren't coming to negotiate. They were coming to destroy. General Hayes knew that if they didn't stop them now, Earth would fall and the galaxy would be lost. On Earth, the skies were filled with ships. Human and Orogos fleets stood together, ready for the fight of their lives. The new weapon, developed using the Orogos' energy manipulation, was ready, but there was no guarantee it would work. If it failed, humanity and the Orogos would have no choice but to rely on their courage and strength to survive. General Hayes stood on the bridge of the Endeavor, watching the enemy fleet approach. His hands gripped the railing as he watched the massive ships of the Xoric block out the stars. The battle ahead would be their toughest yet. "They're here," Commander Tanaka said, her voice tight with tension. "We have one shot at this. If we fail, Earth will be lost." Dr. Crows walked into the room, her face filled with both determination and fear. "The weapon is ready. We've harnessed the Orogos' power into a single burst. If we hit their command ship with this, it should destroy their fleet. But if we miss, or if they somehow block it, we're in trouble," Hayes replied. "We don't have any choice," Cruz said. "It's our best chance." The Orogos fleet, now working in unison with the humans, began to align their ships for the final strike. Elder Valter, their most powerful leader, stood at the head of the Orogos fleet. He could feel the energy growing inside him, a power he had never before known. The Orogos had unlocked their full potential, and now it was time to use it. As the Xoric closed in, the battle began. Ships on both sides fired their weapons, sending bright flashes across the black sky. The Orogos used their energy manipulation to create shields and disable enemy ships, while the humans coordinated their attacks with precision. But the real challenge was the Xoric flagship, the heart of their fleet. If they could destroy that ship, they would disrupt the entire Xoric command structure. It was their last chance. With the Xoric flagship in range, the combined forces of humanity and the Orogos launched their final assault. The new weapon, a burst of concentrated energy, was aimed directly at the flagship. For a moment, time seemed to freeze as all eyes watched the glowing beam of energy race toward its target. Then, the explosion came. The Xoric flagship erupted in a massive burst of light, disintegrating into nothingness. The energy blast had worked. The Xoric fleet, without their leader, faltered and began to retreat. The battle was over. The war was over. The humans and the Orogos had won. On Earth, the skies cleared, and for the first time in years, peace seemed possible. General Hayes and Dr. Cruz stood together, watching the victory unfold. They had lost so much, but they had won what mattered most. The Orogos had found a new purpose, no longer hiding in the shadows of their own power. And humanity, once on the brink of extinction, had proven their strength. It was a hard-fought victory, but it was a victory nonetheless. And as they looked to the future, they knew that they had not only saved their home, but also brought hope to the entire galaxy.